All right, let's get into it. Today, we're exploring two worlds that seem like they have absolutely nothing in common. But when you look closer, you find this wild pattern connecting them. We're talking about the teacher and the principal. So here's the big question we're tackling today. What in the world could a hip-hop pioneer and a Korean theological text from the 60s possibly have in common? I know, it sounds kind of out there, but trust me, the parallels might just change how you think about the way history works. To really see the connection, we have to go back to the beginning, back to the original ideal. You see, both of these worlds started with this deep, profound sense of purpose, a clear vision for how things were supposed to be. Let's kick things off with hip-hop. From its earliest days, it was always about more than just music. I mean, just listen to this line from the legend, KRS-One. Deal with straight-up facts, no mystery. That wasn't just a dope rhyme, it was a mission statement. The whole point of hip-hop was to be a teacher, to fight ignorance with truth, no filter. And this whole idea, it had a name, conscious rap. Our source material really drives home that this wasn't just a subgenre. No, it was a social institution. Public Enemy famously called it the CNN for Black people. And it wasn't just talk. The Stop the Violence movement, which KRS-One put together, actually raised money to fund literacy programs. Hip-hop was out there, actively trying to build a better world. Okay, now here's the twist. In a totally different universe of ideas, you have this Korean theological text, the Divine Principle. And it describes an original, perfect state that has this weirdly similar sense of purpose. According to this text, the original plan wasn't about getting to some far-off heaven after you die. The goal was to build a kingdom of heaven on earth, an ideal world where people are completely in sync with their creator, living out their true purpose and just experiencing total goodness and joy. So let's put these two side by side, because this is where it clicks. On one side, you have hip-hop's ideal. Be a teacher, be a social force for truth. On the other, you have this theological ideal. Achieve oneness, build a kingdom, fulfill your original purpose. Both start with a clear, powerful vision of a world working exactly as it was meant to. But, you know, in both of these stories, that perfect ideal, well, it doesn't stick around. In both narratives, a single critical event happens that leads to a fall. It severs the connection to that original purpose and sends everything spinning in a totally different direction. In hip-hop, the fall came at the absolute height of its power. You had groups like Public Enemy making these incredibly dense soundscapes, just packed with samples. But that very foundation was about to be ripped out from under them. On November 30th, 1991, a federal judge made a ruling in a case about a Biz Markie track, and it changed the course of music history. And what made this ruling is so brutal was how final it was. The judge didn't mess around. He said sampling without permission wasn't just a violation, it was theft, period. And just like that, overnight, the very DNA of conscious rap, these complex layers of sound and history, it became legally and financially impossible for almost everyone. The sound that carried the message was suddenly too expensive to make. Now, in our parallel story, the Divine Principle talks about a similar disaster, what it calls the human fall. The text describes this as the moment when the first people basically cut the cord, severing their direct connection with God. And in doing so, they fell from that ideal state and ended up under a new, unprincipled kind of rule, completely losing their way. I mean, look at this. The parallel is just undeniable. In both stories, a core connection gets broken. For conscious rap, the court ruling severed it from its sonic foundation. For humanity and the Divine Principle, the fall severed it from its spiritual foundation. The outcome is exactly the same, a loss of the original path. So, what happens after a fall like that? Well, in both narratives, what follows is this long, messy period of contradiction and struggle. It's basically a battle for the soul, caught between what was lost and the harsh new reality. You see, in hip-hop, the money started flowing in a new direction. With complex sampling gone, a simpler sound took over. And the music industry figured something out. Controversy sells. As our source material puts it so well, real became code for criminal. The market started rewarding the gangster image way more than the teacher image. And there's probably no better example of this new, conflicted world than Tupac Shakur. Here's a guy who was the son of a Black Panther. He gave us beautiful, conscious songs like Keep Your Head Up. And at the same time, he glorified thug life. He was trapped, pulled in two directions. Like the source says, trying to serve two masters. And this whole feeling, this long, hard fight, but still holding on to a tiny piece of hope, you hear it echo even today in the work of artists like Kendrick Lamar. This line from All Right just captures it perfectly. It's an admission of the constant struggle, but it ends with this powerful belief in some kind of ultimate restoration. And what's wild is the divine principle actually has a specific name for this entire historical period of struggle. It's called the providence of restoration. It sees all of human history as this long, difficult process of paying a kind of debt, or what it calls indemnity. Basically, a price that has to be paid to make things right, to restore what was lost and get back to that perfect original ideal. Okay, so this brings us to the final act in both of these stories. After the ideal, after the fall, after the long struggle, is there a way back? Both narratives suggest there is. They both point toward a path to restoration, a new way forward. For hip-hop, the way back came from a place nobody really expected: technology. The rise of streaming platforms like YouTube and Spotify completely changed the game. Suddenly, artists didn't need a major record label. They could just go around the old gatekeepers, the ones who were pushing for controversy, and connect directly with fans who wanted that substance. And with this new freedom, you see today's artists picking up that original teacher mission again, but in new ways. The source points to people like the late Nipsey Hussle, who was all about financial literacy and building businesses. You've got Killer Mike, who's become this incredible voice on economics and social justice. They're using their platforms to build the very social institutions conscious rap was always aiming for. And this is where the whole parallel just locks into place beautifully. This rebirth in hip-hop, this reclaiming of its original purpose, it perfectly mirrors the ultimate promise in the divine principle. The text talks about a new truth and a final event, a second advent, that will finally end the long history of struggle and restore the world to the way it was always meant to be. So we're left with this massive question. Whether you're looking at the story of an art form or a theological blueprint for all of existence, you see the same pattern pop up again and again: a perfect beginning, a tragic fall, a long, hard fight, and the final hope of getting it all back. It really makes you wonder, is history just a straight line of one thing after another? Or are we all living inside a much bigger story that keeps repeating itself, always trying to get back home?